Okay, what's good, all my truckers? How y'all doing out there on the road? All those that are traveling and seeing new places, and those are you that just living your best lives. Just happy to be enjoying each day as it comes. What's good? Welcome to the channel. I am PJ, PJ to some, here with Divine Destinations. So today, guys, I want to talk about hours of service and your clock. If you're into trucking, you already know about that. And if you're new to trucking, maybe this will have some information that's a little bit informative for you. So it's like mandatory that every driver keeps a daily log. Now, there's two ways you can keep your log of your time when you're driving. You can do it through a paper logbook, or you can have an ELD, a computer tablet, which, let me see if I have that. I have a tablet usually. So today we're going to go into the tablet and what happens with the tablet. And then another day I'll probably go into the paper logbook. But yeah, every driver, because if you get pulled over by DOT, you're required to show them how long you've been driving. And it's more so, I think, to cut down on like fatigue driving and things like that. At least that's what I'm gonna chalk it up to, right? But if you're gonna do interstate, where you're going from state to state driving, you definitely need to keep either a paper logbook in your truck at all times. Well, actually, you have to keep the paper logbook in your truck at all times regardless, because if your ELD should go down, if your computer tablet should go down, you're gonna have to be able to record your hours of driving, fueling, and things like that on your actual paper logbook. So you should always have one in your truck. And I don't have it to show you now, but maybe I'll insert a picture and we'll go into it more on another day. So if you see me looking down, I did write some notes. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, so let's go into the 4 categories that are that'll show up on the ELD. All right. So the 4 daily types of logs you will put on your ELD, or that are even also on the paper log, are your off duty, your on duty, your off duty, on duty, sleeper berth. I feel like what's the 4th one? Off duty, on duty, and driving. So let me put that together again. Off duty, on duty, driving, and sleeper berth, when you're actually back there sleeping, which is kind of the same like off duty, because you are off duty, but you can choose to log it as sleep time so that it shows up the times you were sleeping. Okay. Now, when you're off duty and you have an off duty status, you're not required to be working or doing anything job related. And there are certain things that are considered off-duty activities. So if you're eating, that's considered off-duty. If you're having time at home, that's considered off-duty. If you're spending time in a hotel or a motel because your truck is being serviced, that's considered off-duty. If you take time to just take a bathroom break, or just get out and stretch your legs because you've been driving too long, or you're taking time to relax at a truck stop, that's all considered off-duty time. All time spent in the sleeper berth is considered off-duty time also, but it's in the sleeper. And anytime you're driving with the ELD, it automatically kicks into drive. The minute you hit over 4 or 5 miles an hour, mine kicks automatically into drive. And of course, driving is always driving time, right? Anytime you begin. But then you have on duty. Now, on duty can consist of a few different things. So like if you're on duty, you could be at a shipper getting loaded or unloaded. You could be doing your pre-trip or post-trip on your truck. That's still considered on-duty time. If you ever get stopped, God forbid, by DOT, that inspection time still needs to be logged as on duty. Time spent, if you ever got in an accident for whatever reason, that's still considered on duty time. If you had to go and take a drug and alcohol test, that's considered on duty time. If you have any required training, like sometimes we'll have in the tablet, they'll do like a monthly training. They want that to be logged in as on duty time because it is still you doing something towards the company. If you're fueling and it has something to do with the truck, that's considered on duty time. And any like meetings, things like that you're going to have with your company, they still consider that logging in as on duty time. Okay, so we went through the 4 types of statuses that you would have: on duty, off duty, sleeper berth, and driving. Now, let's get into how you would take your breaks with your ELD log, because there's a couple of different breaks also. So you have a 10-hour break, you have the 11-hour break, or clocks. I'll say the 10-hour clock, your 11-hour clock, your 14-hour clock, and your 8-hour clock. Now, your 10-hour clock is about your break time. You're required to take at least 10 hours after each day. So like, let's say you drove your entire day and now you're shutting down and you're going into the sleeper for the night. Once you shut it down, you're required to show 10 hours either in the sleeper or 10 hours off duty, any combination of both, or all off duty or all on in the sleeper. But you're required to have 10 consecutive hours. It can't be broken up. That's important to know. It has to be consecutive hours in the sleeper off duty status. Okay? Now, that's your 10-hour break. It's not a part of your clock. Your 3 clocks are the 11, the 14, and the 8-hour clock. So let's get into the 11-hour clock. The 11-hour clock is about your driving. You are not allowed to drive more than 11 hours in a day. Let me see if I can sum this up quick. So yeah, 11 hours in a day you can't drive. Once those 11 hours, okay, how do I say this properly? 14 hours, okay, you get a 14-hour day. Basically, you get a 14-hour day. So you have 14 hours in a day. 11 of those hours only can be driving. The other 3 hours are considered your on-duty time. So that's where you're getting fuel, diesel. That's where I got food cooking, sorry. That's where you're getting loaded and unloaded. That's where you're doing your training and things like that. So 14 hours in a day. Once you start your clock on your ELD, you hit start, you start doing your pre-trip, that clock starts going, and it does not stop. The 14-hour clock is continuous. It will not stop. Now, your 11-hour and your 8-hour clock will stop. How does it stop? Whenever you take a break. Whenever you go off duty or whenever you go on duty. No, whenever you go off duty and you're taking a break, you can stop your driving clock, which is your 11-hour clock, and you're required, that's what I was looking for. You're required to take, after 8 hours of driving, you're required to take a 30-minute break somewhere in there. Whichever clock on the ELD is counting down the quickest, so like you're going to reach that first, that will show up on your clock. So usually you log in, you go on duty, you start your day, your 14-hour clock starts. Not everything starts at the same time, because the 11-hour clock hasn't started. It doesn't start. It starts separately until you actually drive. But the 14-hour clock started. So once it starts, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop until 14 hours later, and then you're supposed to take a 10-hour consecutive break. That's how this goes. So you started your 14-hour day. Somewhere in there, you're going to have to stop and take at least a 30-minute break. That's considered your 8-hour clock. Now, after your 30-minute break, you start driving again, your drive clock will start back again. So what I'm trying to get you to see is that the 11-hour clock can stop, but no matter what happens, you only get 11 hours in a day to drive. And no matter what happens, once your 14-hour clock starts, it is going to count down. So make sure you're ready to start your day and get going and do things like that. So you drive 11 hours, you're required to take a 10-hour break. Once you start your day, you have to take a 30-minute break within those 8 hours. And then your 14-hour day, there's no more driving, no more on duty, no more anything like that. So now, the last thing I want to mention is the 70-hour clock. So what happens there is you get 70 hours in a week. But a week is not 7 days. It's an 8-day clock. So the 70-hour rule states that a driver may not drive, and no motor carrier can require or allow a driver to drive after having been, let me let this up. So we got all kind of distractions. So back to the 70-hour rule. The 70-hour rule says a driver may not drive and no motor carrier can require or allow a driver to drive after having been on duty 70 hours in an 8 consecutive days. Okay, so the 70-hour rule, I wanted to say something specific about that. So basically, let me see if I can break it down. You get 70 hours in a week, but your week is considered 8 days. And after those 70 hours, they will require you to take a reset. One or two things can happen. You would either be required to take a reset, or you have to wait for your hours to upload the next day. So let's talk about the reset, or the recap. The 34-hour reset means you have to take 34 hours consecutive, no break in between, where you're completely off duty. And that off duty can be considered in the sleeper berth, or it could just be what's happening there? Okay, I don't know, it looks like it's jumping. Okay, we're back. Are we back? We're not back. Okay, are we back? I don't know what was happening there. Something was happening there. So back to what I was saying. The 34-hour reset. After you've ran your 70-hour clock for the 8 consecutive days, you're required to take a 34-hour reset. And it has to be 34 consecutive hours. There's no break in between. Resets are not mandatory, though, and I'm going to get into how you can not have to take an entire 34 hours of not driving, not doing mileage, and not moving. We'll get into that in 1 second. I'm going to make sure with my notes that I didn't skip anything. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then the last thing I want to get into is just how you can go about not having to take a 34-hour reset. So, if you run your clock where instead of driving like 9-10 hours, sometimes close to 11 hours in a day, I found that if I do like 8.5 hours, then, or about 8 hours of just driving time, then on my 8th day, whatever I did 8 days ago, those hours come back to you, like you gain those hours back. So when I did it that way, it was like I never had to actually take a 34-hour reset, because You never get a full 70 clock again if you don't take the 34-hour reset, but you will gain those hours, whatever those hours were from 8 days ago. So if you only did 4 hours that previous Monday, then that next Monday you would be gaining back the 4 hours. I'm not sure if that's making any sense, but this video is getting a little bit long. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments and we can go over that more. I hope this helps somebody. I hope you understand your clock and how it's supposed to work and what it's for. The clock is mainly there for us not to have fatigued drivers on the road, and then for you to be able to show DOT the fact that you're not fatigued, and the fact that you're doing your pre-trips and post-trips and things like that, because you do have to log those on duty time. So you can end up using more than the 11 hours in a day, because you do have to pre-trip, post-trip. Sometimes you're sitting at a shipper waiting to get loaded. All of that's considered on duty time. So all my truckers, my travelers, and those just living your best life, thank you for joining me for this video. This is PJ, Empress PJ to some, with divine destinations. Thank you for joining me.